Welcome to Architrave Gaming. I'm the Archmaster. Thank you for dropping by. All right, today we're going over my game system, Arches and Avatars. We're going through the character creation, and we are touching on star signs and something about the skills that I didn't mention in the skills video, and it is your skill focus, or foci, your skill focuses. All right, so let's start with star signs. After you choose your class, you go to your star signs, and your star sign is usually determined by your class, but of course there are other options if you want to be like, hey GM, I don't want my class star sign, I want a different one. So essentially, when the star signs are broken up into the archetype constellation, and each archetype constellation is made up of 3 archennial constellations, right? So you have the archetype of the warrior, right? And you have the 3 classes within the warrior: the armiger, the brute, and the bulwark. And so you have the archetypal constellation of the warrior, the constellation of the warrior. It gives you abilities, but you get the abilities of the warrior archetype when you choose a class that falls under the warrior archetype. If you choose to be the armiger, the brute, or the bulwark, you get the abilities from the warrior archetype constellation, right? Likewise, when you choose a certain class, we'll use armiger because that's what we covered last time, you would get the abilities of the armiger constellation as well, right? So you get the whole warrior archetype constellation abilities, and then the specific archennial or class archetype, archennial or class constellation features. Maybe that makes sense, maybe not. We'll see. Thank you for stopping in, and thank you for my patrons for supporting me. And thank you for liking and subscribing and all the YouTube pleasantries. All right, so at level 1, you choose, your class, right? And so at level 1, you get your class or archennial constellation level 1 ability. So for the armiger, this is on top of everything you get in all the class description and subclass and all the stuff I've previously mentioned. For your constellation feature, you have advantage to avoid being disarmed. Anytime someone wants to disarm you, you have advantage because you were born under the sign of the armiger, and he has a weapon in his hand, and so he's not going to have it disarmed from it. So the way this works is every other level, you get a feature from your archennial constellation, the one tied to your class, and every other level, every even level, you get a feature from the whole warrior archetype that your class falls under. You get a feature from that constellation, right? So you go to the warrior at level 2, get +1 to strength or constitution. Free. This is on top of the +1 to any score of your choice that you get at every level. This is a +1 to strength or con at level 2. So yeah, you start out with low stats, but it doesn't stay low that long. It's not going to be that terrible. It's going to be fine. At level 3, back to your archennial, you get a +3 when using 2 achieve actions to roll with advantage. So I don't know if this is actually something I mentioned in the action economy video, but you can take 2 actions. You can choose to take, instead of taking the same action twice, like, hey, I'm gonna use an achieve action to attack and then use an achieve action to attack. You can use them both at the same time to attack once with advantage. You can take your 2 I don't really want to call them action points because they aren't action points, but you can take your 2 actions at once to roll with advantage, right? If you need to make an intelligence check with advantage, you can take 2 intelligence, check actions, 2 think actions to roll and to make an intelligence check with advantage, right? You can take 2 speak actions to make a persuasion check, a charisma check with advantage. You can take 2 move actions to make a dexterity check with advantage. This helps you when it's like, we really need to jump over this crack, this crag, this crevice. It helps you actually put your abilities where you want them when you need them, right? Yeah, you can do it twice, like in combat. It's like, yeah, I'd rather attack them twice, I might do more damage. But it also conserves aspects. If you're like, hey, I have more actions than aspects, I'm running low on aspects, I'd rather spend 1 aspect and attack once, but spend 2 actions and do so with advantage, right? So, yeah, it's a way to balance things out. There's player choice. You actually get to make meaningful decisions in combat, outside of combat, to conserve your resources and spend them as you wish. There are actual meaningful choices in the action economy of the game. All right, at level 4, you gain effort equal to half your level. So, and that keeps increasing as you go. So effort is your strength aspect. You know how I said, when you make a strength check, you spend the aspect next to strength? That aspect is called effort. And so you gain extra effort because you're a warrior class. You were born under the constellation of the warrior, right? You're one of the classes that chose to be, you chose to be an armiger or a brute or a bulwark. Those are all warrior archetype classes, and so you gain the warrior archetype thing. It's like you have extra effort because all these classes need strength. They need to, do things with their arms. All right, level 5, you add half your level to your miss bonus. This is on top of everything I mentioned for the armiger and the tactician fighter. Half your level to your miss bonus. Yeah, you're really good at missing and making your misses work out really well for you and your party. All right, level 6, proficiency in 1 strength skill. So yeah, you gain a new proficiency and an extra proficiency in a strength skill. All right, at level 7, +1 athletics skill focus. All right, here's where we are going to switch gears and go back to skills in the basics of the game. All right, so, if only I had a character sheet on me, I could show it better. Anyway, when you're choosing your skills, each skill is it's the singular skill, like persuasion, right? Actually, let me pick a better one. Fine, persuasion. I really should have the list of the foci in here. So yeah, you pick that skill. You're proficient in persuasion, either novice, journeyman, or adept. Then you add +3, +4, or +5 whenever you make that skill, right? That's your normal thing, unless you're out of aspects, so then you don't add proficiency. But what a skill focus is, it's one way that you can use that skill, right? It's one of the various ways that you can use the skill. So you can persuade someone to help you. You can persuade someone to. I have to hang that up. You can persuade someone to do various things. Well, actually, maybe I am going to switch over to put you on Do Not Disturb. I am going to switch over to intimidation. You can intimidate someone to cower. You can intimidate someone to flee. You can intimidate someone to be silent and not, I call it refrain from doing something, right? Each skill has 4 skill foci, right? They're 4 skill focuses per each skill, right? 20 skills in the game, each one has 4 foci. And so when you choose proficiency in the skill, you add your proficiency bonus to any time you use that skill, right? But when you choose one of those skill foci, you say, okay, I have proficiency in intimidation, but I focus on cower. That means that whenever you make an intimidation check and you add your proficiency bonus, you make the roll, and you are intimidating them into cowering, you cannot roll below your level. The whole point of a focus is to give you a reliable roll. In my system, reliable just means you can't roll below your level. You're good at this. It's a reliable talent. You've practiced this enough. It's one thing to have a bonus. It's one thing to really not be able to fail, right? That's a separate kind of thing. So in my system, if you are a brute, right, or a barbarian, right, you're a warrior. You want to knock down a door. In 5e, it's kind of lame when you're this big brute and you go to knock down the door and it's like, oh, I rolled a 1. And then the little gnome wizard walks up and rolls a 20 and knocks it down, right? Silly. Doesn't make any sense. In my system, I fixed that. I said, you know what? You should be good at knocking down doors, okay? So when you are proficient in the forcing skill, and yes, I have athletics and forcing, because so many times I heard Matt Mercer tell Yasha, it's like, make me a strength check. And she's like, not athletics check? It's like, no, it's not athletics. It's like, oh, no, there should absolutely be an obvious forcing skill, right? So yes, in my system I have a forcing skill. So the 4 skill foci of forcing are, I believe, throw, break, push, and drag, or like lift. Push, lift, drag, and throw, or break. It's 4 of them. That's too many. But there are 4 specific ones, and it pretty much covers everything. And so you can say, hey, I'm choosing the skill focus break, right? So anytime I make a forcing check to break something, I can't roll below my level. That would fix the problem. You're level 8, you cannot roll below an 8. You roll the die and it's a 2, you treat it like an 8. You roll the die and it's a 1, you treat it like an 8. You're just good at this. You've practiced this. It's reliable. This is a focus of yours. You have focused on this one small part of the skill, and you are just better at it, right? So yeah, I think that's a super cool mechanic. It solves another problem. It's really simple. It's right there on the character sheet. It's like, oh look, I have a focus on, flee. Whenever I try to intimidate someone to flee, I can't roll below my level. Done. Real simple. That doesn't add complexity. That doesn't add extra math. That's just a cool feature that actually, furthers the character fantasy. It's like, I'm good at picking locks. I'm good at, blah, blah, blah. And so, later I intend to take the whole reliable roll because I think it's a really good mechanic. I intend to apply it to stuff like, tool proficiencies, like picking locks and stuff. Not like any and every lock. You can be like, hey, easy locks, I can't roll below my level. With harder ones, I still can, right? So like, you can split it up and apply it. You can say that at, like past level, 16 or something, you can't roll below a 5 on your attack rolls as a fighter, right? Like you can apply this idea of a reliable roll. You can't roll below X number. You can apply it to a lot of things to further the power fantasy and get rid of those blunders, those fails, those like, it doesn't make any sense that you're level 20 and you just missed with your sword with a nat 1. It's like, no, you're so good at this. You can't miss, you can't get nat 1s anymore, right? Yeah, you can still miss. It can be a dragon with a 30 AC, but you can't just fumble with a nat 1. So anyway, those are skill foci. Solves a really cool thing. You get to choose a skill foci every level as you level up, right? And so there are 20 skills and 4 foci per skill. So there are 80 skill foci, right? And you only get to pick, 9, or you only get like 11 total over the first 10 levels. So it's not like it's super mega overpowered, but still, you get to pick 11. I think you have 2 at first level and then 1 every level after that. That's a lot of skill foci. You can choose to be, really reliable at various things, and it increases as you go, and it lets you feel like you're actually getting better at it. Yeah, your bonuses go up, your +3, +4, +5, it keeps going up. But you also feel like you're getting better at it. It's like, I'm an expert at this. I'm reliable. I have reliable talent. I know how to do this thing and I don't fail it anymore. It fixes things. It makes the class fantasy actually make more sense. I really like reliable rolls, in case you couldn't tell. And thank you all for sticking through this this long. It's really amazing that you're still here. All right, we're gonna finish out the warrior and armiger. We're not gonna get through all the rest. They all have similar things that help that class or that archetype. All right, level 8, +1 strength skill focus. Cool. So that's any skill that falls under strength. You got to focus in that instead of just athletics. It's any. And then level 9. This is your last armiger Arcanial Constellation feature, right? One think action, once a stage. The stage is 6 days in my thing. So once every 6 days, for 1 minute, all attacks that hit count as criticals. At level 9, because you're born under the sign of the armiger, once a day for 1 minute, all attacks that hit count as criticals, which again, you add that extra die on top. It's not super game breaking. Criticals in my system are not the same as criticals in 5e. But if you have like a D8 and you hit someone with a D8 damage plus strength mod, you add a D8 and a D10. You add the next die up. Right? That's what a critical is. So it's not going to break everything. You're not like doubling all your dice. It's not like you can smite 50 times and double everything. But yeah, you feel really good. It's like once every 6 days. Can't do it forever, but I'm going to hit this guy hard, right? I think that's kind of cool. It's a cool ability that makes you feel like you've actually progressed at level 9. All right, and then level 10. Strength checks no longer expend effort. So that is something that at level 10, it applies to all warrior archetype classes. It doesn't matter if you're an armiger, a brute, or a bulwark. If you're level 10 in any of those classes, strength checks no longer expend effort. You can make strength checks all day, baby, knocking down those doors forever, right? I think that makes sense. That fills you with the idea of this power fantasy. I've just gotten so good at this, right? In my system, level 10 is like a soft max. Most people only stop at level 10 anyway. You get a satisfying number of class features and all of your subclass features in those first 10 levels. You're done. You can go and play something else. With the advanced rules, you can keep playing past level 10 and choose a second subclass on top of the first and progress through that. And then you also get the second half of your class features if you go that way, right? But that second half of class features are kind of crazy. They're kind of really powerful because high level play is really powerful, right? So most times people just go, levels 1 to 10, and even if you keep playing another 10 sessions, 20 sessions, you still don't usually progress past 10. The GM, everyone is happy at level 10 because it's really satisfying. You got all your features, you're good. All right, here's something that is optional, right? So I mentioned 10 features, right? You have 10 levels and 10 features that you get, 5 of them from your archetypal constellation, the other 5 from your archennial constellation, right? The archetype and the class. Well, the first thing that you get at level 1 is called your birth sign. They're all your star signs, but the first feature, the first thing is your birth sign, right? If you're born under the constellation of the Armiger is your birth sign and you get the first feature of it, right? You can choose to replace that first feature. You can choose to be born under a different star sign. Any of the others, and I haven't read the others, but you can choose to be born under any of the other archennial, the class constellations. If you look at something like Rogue, technically it's Skulk. Skulk at level 1, you get +1 daily luck per level. That's what you get as a Skulk at level 1. You can say, hey, I'm an Armiger, but I really don't want to have advantage to avoid being disarmed. I don't really care. Instead, my character, I chose the path of the Armiger when I grew up, but I was born under the sign of the Skulk. And so I have +1 daily luck, right? You can change that first thing out for any of the others, right? And all the rest of your progression proceeds as normal. It goes on with your actual class, right? But that first one you can trade out. In addition to this, I have 20 other what I call roaming constellations. So these aren't tied to the classes at all. These are just various other constellations, and you can choose any of these as your birth sign. You can get rid of your, advantage against being disarmed, and you can choose one of these roaming constellations. You just get the one feature from the roaming constellation, and then all of your other star sign features proceed as normal with your class and your archetype, but you can trade out the first one if you want. These are kind of silly, at least they can be. They're kind of just weird. It's like, okay, and so not a lot of people pick these, but if you feel like doing a gag or doing something like, I want a weird character, it's like, go right ahead. All right, there are 20 of these. It's on a D20 table. I'm just going to read them all because I think they're kind of cool. All right, pie or blueberry pie. There's no way to tell if it's a blueberry pie. It's a constellation in the sky, but people call it the blueberry pie. You only need to eat once every 6 days. Once a stage. The shovel. You can breathe well in underground environs, immune to molds. Probably won't come up very much. Oh well, it's a little thing. Waterfall. Born under the sign of the waterfall. Takes 1 action, teleport 30 feet once every 6 days. That you may be wondering why that's a waterfall. I think I've given an example previously about association magic, where if you have 2 waterfalls in different places in the world and they're essentially identical, right? The size of the waterfall, the length of it, all the stuff is very similar, right? Well, the world can get kind of confused as to which is which, and sometimes what happens to one happens to the other, and they kind of cross, right? So if you're on a boat and you're paddling down the river and you go off the waterfall, you might appear going off of the other one. You might just teleport. And so it's this, teleport association magic, so that's why the constellation of the waterfall lets you teleport. All right, the volcano. 1 action. Frenzy 1 round on target in 30 feet once every 6 days. So you can, within 30 feet of you, you can spend an action and frenzy a target, which means he attacks anyone nearby, and he attacks them for 1 round. So you're like, hey, go out and attack this, whoever, random person. Volcano is like fire. It's like, have this fire and you explode in fiery rage, right? You're born under the sign of the volcano. You can make people attack random people. And it doesn't say there's any save here. It's like, you can look at, the King's Bodyguard and be like, attack the nearest person. It's like, that might be actually kind of cool. You can only do it once every 6 days, but that might be useful, right? It's like, it's a cool thing. All right, tree, 1 speak action. You can charm a person on touch once every 6 days. You charm them for 1 minute. All right, diamond, you cannot get sick. And you may be thinking, like, whoever gets sick. It's like, well, in my system, you might. Book, extra skill proficiency or skill focus. Because you're born under the sign of the book, you learn stuff better. Hammer, you have novice proficiency in 2 tools of your choice. Cloud, fall damage is halved for you. You were born under the sign of the cloud. You're as light as a cloud. You fall off, doesn't hurt as much. Cool, that might be cool. Maybe you want that instead of, advantage against being disarmed. Yeah, go ahead, it's there. How often do you fall off of things? Maybe the one time it happens, you'll be really happy you have the cloud. Who knows, right? These are just minor things. It's not super game breaking. It's like, yeah, oh well. You only have like 20 HP, so if you fall off a 60-foot cliff, you're still dying. The damage you take falling is half the distance fallen, minus your dex score actually, but I'll get into that later. I might as well get into it now. So in my system, if you fall off something, you subtract the number of feet fallen you subtract your dexterity score from the number of feet fallen. So if you fall off a 20-foot cliff and you have a 10 dexterity score, you treat it as if you fell off a 10-foot cliff. And because the damage you take is equal to half the distance fallen, it's half of that 10-foot cliff, you take 5 damage, right? So that means if you have a 20 dexterity score, you can fall off a 20-foot cliff. You can jump off a 20-foot cliff and land and roll and be perfectly fine because you're just that dexterous, right? So yeah, it's a simple calculation. You don't have to roll any dice. If you fall off, a 16-foot cliff and have a 12 score, well then you only fall off a 4-foot cliff, right? Like, you were keeping yourself until you got that extra 4 feet, right? And so you take half of that, you take 2 damage, right? It's very simple. All right, and rounded down, of course, everything is rounded down in my system for simplicity. There's nothing you round up, everything is rounded down. And it creates some kind of problems where it's like, oh man, I wish we could round up here. It's like, no, simplicity, consistency, we round down everywhere. All right, flag. Once every 6 days, touch someone and know their sworn oaths and devotion. Might be useful, their flag, their allegiance, who they're fighting for. River, once a stage, know where the nearest building within 50 miles is. So it's like, if you're lost in the wild, you can if you find a river, you can follow the river to civilization. That's kind of like a survival trick, right? Born under the sign of the river, you know where the nearest settlement within 50 miles is. Hat, choose one skill focus or tool proficiency daily, replacing the old one. No repeats in 12 days, which is a duodec. It's two stages. So it's like a person who wears many hats. You put on a different hat each time. It's like you're born under the sign of the hat. You get to just pick up skill proficiencies with different things, only one at a time, and you just switch them out every day. So I think that's a cool little thing. You might have the proficiency you need that day, right? It's just a cool little choice that you get to make every morning, right? I think it's cool. Mountain, free action. For 1 minute, you are immune to being prone. And you can only use this once every 6 days. So that, once every 6 days, someone tries to knock you prone, you're like, I'm immune to being prone for 1 minute. I stand like a mountain. You can't knock me over. Cool. Cave. For 1 round, fall into a small enclosed hole and be protected once a day. So you can essentially create this little cave for yourself and just fall into the ground, and the ground closes over you, and you can stay in there up to a minute and be totally protected. That might come up, like if you really need it. If you're like, dude, I'm bleeding out, I'm about to die. It's like, fall into a cave and I just hang out here. You're safe, and you can pop out later and help your allies, right? It's like, that might be useful. That's kind of cool. All right. Oh, leg of mutton. Adept proficiency in improvised weapons. You get maximum proficiency at level 1 in improvised weapons. It's called leg of mutton because I heard Professor Dungeon Master say something like, it's everyone's God-given right to kill a person with a leg of mutton. Something like that. And I was like, leg of mutton. Proficiency with improvised weapons. Go ahead. And so that's a little homage to him. All right. If you're born under the sign of the torch, again, these are just roaming constellations, not connected to any of the archetypes, your torch's light reaches twice as far. Instead of like a 15-foot dim light, it's a 30-foot dim light. Ooh, super cool. Yes, I greatly reduced the light of torches because, again, 5e has an insane... Have you ever seen a torch? It is not 20 feet of freaking bright light. That's not what a torch does. It is not another 15 feet of dim light on top of that. That's crazy. It is 15 feet of dim light. That's all a torch did. Look at National Treasure. Look at Nicolas Cage with a torch going underground in the catacombs. Tell me that is 20 feet of bright light and 20 feet of dim. No. That's barely even fit. I'm generous to say it's 15 feet of dim light, right? It's scary. It's dim. It's hard to see. Disadvantaged to see stuff. And it only goes a few feet in front of you. Torches are not these massive light sources. That's what you need a bullseye lantern for. That might go 30 or more feet, right? That's something special. Different light sources mean different things. Whoever uses a freaking bullseye lantern when your torch gives you 40 feet of light that you can see, because everyone has dark vision, it's 40 feet of bright light for you. That's insane. No, I fix that. Dungeon delving is actually scary again, and torches aren't overpowered mega nuke weapons. All right. Bell. Free action. For 1 minute, project your voice up to 500 feet. Once a stage. Once every 6 days. So, once every 6 days, you're like, yeah! Like, you can do that. It might come in handy. Who knows? Maybe. And remember, various people in the world, like the GM can decide that an NPC has any of these. So it's like, the town crier, he's born under the sign of the bell. You just yell it out. Maybe they have 6 people born under the sign of the bell, and so each of them does their thing one day a week, and they're the town crier, and they just yell out the message, right? All right. We're on 18 of 20. We're almost done. Paper, born under the sign of paper. One achieve action. For 10 minutes, you can magically disguise any piece of paper once a day. Magically disguise. Like, oh, this isn't, the Constitution. This is my boarding. Like, this is my letter to my brother in Philly. It's like, yeah, you can disguise any piece of paper. Like, that might be useful. Remember, these are all really conditional. This isn't something that's like, oh yeah, I'm going to pick this because it's overpowered. It's like, it might come in handy. When you do use that and it comes in handy, you're going to remember it. All right, pen and inkwell. No one can learn your name without your consent. Might come in handy. Who knows? Maybe it's good for criminals. All right, last one. Star. Roll a d20 at the start of each day. On a 1 to 10, you have no luck that day. 11 to 20, you have double luck that day. Do you want to pick it? It's up to you. It's an optional thing. There are special birth events like there's a shooting star, a silver moon, golden aurora, one of the ley lines appeared, you saw a flying whale herd, a visage of the past appeared, I gotta tell you about visages of the past, visited by a druid, blessed by a mage or a cleric, blah, blah, blah. Horns blasted in the air, visited by a fey creature or a celestial or an infernal or abyssal or a magic wild surge affected you, or wild magic surge affected you. There are a whole bunch of different special birth events. There are omens, which are another cool thing. All right. Next time, I think I'm going to go to Pursuit. I already talked a lot about the background in the introductory video to character creation. I don't think I'm going to give you... who knows? I might. The next video might be background and pursuit. Yeah, that seems decent. And then after that, we're on to one of my favorites, which is equipment. I'm going to tell you about how inventory works. It's real simple. It shouldn't take long. Although, coming from me, that's funny. I'm going to tell you about how durability works. Really simple. I'm going to tell you about one of my favorite things, the weapons and the weapon maneuvers and how using weapons, the weapon proficiency, armor proficiency, all the cool features you get from all this stuff. I'm really looking forward to that one. I've got to get through the background and the pursuit stuff, and then I'll get to weapons and stuff, all the equipment. So thank you for watching. Like and subscribe. Thank you very much to my patrons. And I have a Patreon in the description for only $5. And eventually, I'll have a tier, a higher tier that you can actually get access to part of the PDF to play test in your own games. So yeah, thank you for watching. Like to subscribe, feed the algorithm, and God bless.